So you were not physically attracted to Christine?
That's an understatement.
And he said a while ago that he wasn't attracted to me or anything. What, so he gets to have an intimate marriage with other wives but not with me? And I'm, what, gonna have nothing for the rest of my life?
On November 2nd, Cody's third wife, Christine Brown, posted a statement to her Instagram page that read, "After more than 25 years together, Cody and I have grown apart and I have made the difficult decision to leave. We will continue to be a strong presence in each other's lives as we parent our beautiful children and support our wonderful family. At this time, we ask for your grace and kindness as we navigate through this stage within our family. With love, Christine Brown." Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the beginning and the end of Cody Brown and all of his wives but one. If you are unaware what Sister Wives is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory. Sister Wives is a reality television series that aired on TLC that followed the lives of 4 sister wives, all married to one man by the name of Cody Brown. The 5 characters in this story are Cody Brown, his first wife Mary Brown, his second wife Janelle Brown, his third wife Christine Brown, and then his fourth and current final wife Robin Brown. They were some of, if not the first polygamist family to go public on a reality television show, which caused a lot of issues in their family. After the first season aired, they lived in the state of Utah and they were fearing for their safety. They thought that Cody was going to get put in prison because polygamy is against the law. They really wanted to live their lives freely and be able to be in public about their family life and not have to hide from the public about the fact that they were all married to the same man. They wanted to be able to be open about it. Now, there are a lot of things about their family dynamic in particular that makes it look much more normal than some of the polygamous families that we've seen. Because there are some dark things that go on within polygamy, it causes things to be more difficult for families that are a little bit more normal with how they go about things. One of the things that I always appreciated about the Brown family is that they never appeared to shove it into their children's lives or try and force them to make the decisions that they did. For what we know right now, it seems that most of their kids, if not all of them, are not choosing to live in polygamy because they haven't been brainwashed into it. In most polygamous families, that's not how it is. They will shove it down your throat and they will brainwash you into believing that that is the way that you need to live your life, that you need to be a polygamist. So one thing that I liked about the Brown family is that they didn't do that. Even when their daughter Mariah came out as gay, they were very supportive of her. They did not disown her or make her feel like she was doing anything wrong, and they welcome her fiance. Maybe they're married now, but I know they were engaged. They welcome her fiance in with open arms and don't treat them any differently. So that's one thing I really appreciate and like about the Brown family. The way that they run their family in polygamy is different than a lot of polygamists that we've seen. That's one positive thing I can say about it. Once we continue, I'm definitely going to be saying some things about how Cody is with his kids that it's not going to be as nice as that, to say the least. Now, the first season of Sister Wives followed Cody as he was courting and marrying his fourth and final wife, Robin Brown. Now, what the show didn't show was the beginning of his 3rd other marriages. This is the beginning of Cody and his first wife, Mary Brown. It was in October of 1989 when Cody met Mary Barber after her friend, who happened to be Cody's sister, had introduced them. Now, Cody and Mary became close. It was only a couple months before he ended up proposing. That's one thing that we'll notice about Cody is that he proposes really quickly, which might contribute to why in the end he doesn't really like some of his wives that he chose to marry. The couple wed not even a year later. On the 21st of April in 1990, Mary was only 19 years old at the time and Cody was 22. Now, when they got married, they both knew that they wanted to live plural marriage. They knew that this was something that they wanted and that they were going to be seeking a second wife. If I'm not mistaken, polygamists think that the more wives you have, the higher you're going up the ladder to heaven or something. Now, some of you may not know this, but before Cody was courting his second wife, Janelle, he was courting somebody else, and this is a little bit controversial to say the least. This girl was actually an underage teenage girl that he was courting, and she was apparently friends with Mary. In Mary's 2012 memoir, she expressed that her and the young girl had become really close friends, and she immediately took it as a sign that they were meant to marry her. Now, in Mary's book, she described this girl as being 18 years old. But Christine later revealed that they were actually waiting on this girl to turn 18 years old before they could get married because she was underaged. Now, thankfully, this young girl got out of this situation and she broke things off. She did not become the second wife. In the fall of 1989, Kody met Janelle Shriver, who at the time was married to Mary's brother, Adam Barber. That marriage only lasted 2 years and they were divorced in 1990. And with the things that Janelle has said about the marriage is it doesn't sound like it was a very good one. But Janelle did manage to stay close with Mary and her family throughout the divorce, which is probably how the friendship between her and Kody would end up forming, is they had that connection where she was married to Mary's brother and then Mary was married to Kody. It's just this, you know, in polygamy, they just like to keep it all in the family. So her and Kody ended up becoming close, but there were no romantic feelings involved. And even during her friendship with Mary, they said that they never discussed her being a second wife, like it wasn't even something that was on the cards at the time for them. But eventually it became a thing. They actually said that there were no romantic feelings involved. They didn't have feelings for each other at the time that they got married, which is very weird. I don't know why you would ever want to marry somebody that you didn't have feelings for, because what is the point? I mean, I understand that their point is they're trying to get higher to heaven, but what is the point? They were married in 1993 on Kody's birthday when Janelle was 23 years old, despite having no feelings for each other at the time. Now, the three of them all moved in together, which was a really big mistake because Mary was apparently very harsh and aggressive towards Janelle, and things just got even worse when Janelle actually got pregnant and Mary had been struggling with infertility. So when Janelle got pregnant, a lot of tensions grew between the two of them because Mary was upset about that, which I totally understand. I mean, you marry your husband, you want to have babies with him, and then you can't have babies, but then he has this second wife that all of a sudden he's having babies with. So now we're going to talk about the beginning of Christine and Kody. Now, Christine Allred knew that she wanted to live in plural marriage. She also grew up in it, and in my opinion, again, was brainwashed into thinking this was the way that she needed to live her life. And it was probably all she really knew in seeing that with her family, so it was familiar to her. She met Kody in 1990 and began to get to know him and his wife, his first wife, Mary. After a few years of friendship, she decided that she wanted to pursue a relationship with Kody. So on Kody and Christine's very first date, he proposed. Then they were married on March 25th, 1994, with her becoming his third wife at the age of 21 years old.
We literally got engaged and set a date, and you went off planning it and I continued working, and we weren't even near each other.
Our wedding day was sad. It was a little bit sad. I hadn't seen Kody for a long time. We'd just been talking on the phone. We hadn't connected. I hated my dress.
And Christine would remain the final wife for many years. So they would kind of establish themselves into this family dynamic of three wives and a husband, which I'm sure had all of its ups and downs and lots of things to navigate through. But it was a long time of it just being that way before Robin came into the picture. Now, Kody would go on to have 1 child with Mary, 6 children with Janelle, and 6 children with Christine, for a total of 13 children. So with that many wives, you would think he was super busy. Cannot add any more, but not in polygamy. Never too busy for another wife. Gotta climb that ladder to Jesus. Robin Sullivan was a divorced mom with 3 kids, and although her husband is the one that filed for divorce, Robin alleges that she is the one that asked for the divorce and that wanted the divorce. Apparently her ex was not a good man, and there's not too many details about it, but you can definitely tell that there were some things that were going on behind the scenes. And if I recall correctly, in one of the Sister Wives episodes, she said something to the effect of like him not wanting to live a plural marriage, and it was something that she wanted. Now, after the divorce, she ended up meeting Mary at a mutual friends gathering. The two of them would become close, and Mary would be the first one to bring up to Kody the idea of Robin becoming a part of the family. Now, not only would this be like a huge change to their family dynamic and how they had been running their family this entire time, but this was also when they signed a contract to be on the TLC show Sister Wives. So this is when the cameras show up and they start filming everything. Public, we're all getting to see him courting Robin, him marrying her, how it affects the other wives, and how it affects the children.
So we get along well now because we have our...
We've worked through our issues.
You know what? It's just a constant thing. It's like any other friendship that you have. There's ups, there's downs. There's, you know, you learn,
It's the ebb and flow of the relationship.
Yeah.
And we learned each other's quirks, it's for sure.
And so I'm sorry, but with Robin coming along,
It just changes everything.
It just changes
It
everything.
shakes everything up.
Not only were they dealing with this brand new woman being brought into the family, but this is also when all the stuff at the beginning of this video I told you began to happen, where, you know, they started worrying if Cody was going to be thrown in prison because of him being on this show, going public with how many wives that he had. So he married his fourth wife, and they all ended up moving to Las Vegas with all of their kids because it is Sin City and you can do whatever you want there. You can have as many wives as you want. So they all went there and got in that cul-de-sac situation. Now we're gonna talk about the downfall of Mary and Cody. In 2014, Cody and Mary became legally divorced so that he could legally marry his fourth wife, Robin. Now the reason why they did this was so that Cody could legally adopt her 3 children. There were things going on in Mary's life around this time, stuff that obviously wasn't aired because there's so much dimension to people's lives, and when you have cameras around, they're only capturing parts of it. So there was some stuff going on behind the scenes with Mary, because you got to keep in mind, they all lived in different houses, and Cody was not going to be at every house 24/7.
Wife really just needs some focused time, especially when you only get him every 3 or 4 nights.
And with Mary, she was only able to have 1 child of her own who was grown up. So Mary's like in this house by herself all the time, I'm assuming incredibly lonely. All the other wives are busy with their kids, and with, you know, Robin was busy with their kids and Cody, but everybody was busy. So she spent a lot of time alone.
I'm in this place where I just feel alone, isolated, lonely. I don't feel like anybody else in the family can even relate. I wake up in the mornings and I turn the music on in my house so that I can have some noise, because it's just quiet. It's lonely. I just feel lonely. I'm just alone so much at the time.
Which would probably cause you to seek out some sort of friendship, companionship with somebody. She's not even legally married anymore, and I can imagine there was a lot of things she's probably going through emotionally and didn't have anybody there for her with. So the public and the Brown family did not know that Mary had actually been talking to somebody that she met on Twitter in 2015. This was a man that went by the name of Sam. Now, Sam told her that he was a successful businessman and that he was in his 40s. The Twitter conversations turned into something a little bit more deeper. They got really flirty with each other. These flirtations turned into explicit messages, which also included photos. They ended up talking on the phone, and Mary's feelings would begin to grow for this Sam guy. And she really wanted to pursue something deeper. She wanted to take this from Twitter and the phone to in person. She wanted to meet up with Sam. But every time she tried to meet up with him, something would happen where they couldn't meet up. So it's starting to look a little bit like MTV's Catfish, if you know what I'm saying. Sam pushed off their meetings until he couldn't push them off anymore. And he came up with the plan to have Mary meet up with one of his female friends. His female friend was named Lindsay, and Mary agreed to meet up with Lindsay, and she did, but she didn't know that Lindsay was actually Sam. Mary was being catfished. Sam was not a businessman in his 40s. Sam was a woman by the name of Jackie. Mary wouldn't even find this out until after she met Lindsay, that was actually Jackie, and Sam. Jackie began to threaten her, to expose all of their messages, and to ruin her entire family. And she attempted to do exactly that. Jackie leaked all of the private messages and photos between her and Mary and just exposed all of that on the internet. This was one of the first times it became clear that there was much deeper, darker things going on in the Brown family. Like, people were kind of picking it up. People since the very beginning were like, Robin's the favorite wife, Mary gets the shit end of the stick. Mary always looked really sad and lonely, and so people really felt bad for her. So when this came out, it had the opposite effect of what some people may think that it would have had. Everybody felt really bad for Mary. Like, she was so lonely and didn't have anybody, and Cody could have 3, 4, however many other wives he wants. He could literally have a dozen wives if he wants, and they couldn't do anything about it. People sympathized with Mary more than anything. Like, her having this catfish situation showed that she was emotionally and physically neglected by Cody. Regardless of the support from the public, public and people encouraging Mary to leave and, you know, go find yourself and find somebody that truly loves you and wants to be with you, she, for whatever reason, chose to stay in this marriage with Cody. In recent times, Cody and Mary have described themselves as just friends, even though she's still the first wife. They have also said that they haven't had an intimate relationship for over a decade. And Cody referred to having a physical relationship with Mary to emotional torture, which is a terrible thing to say. And he's also been very clear that there will never be anything between the two of them again, yet Mary talks as if she thinks that maybe there will be one day. I find this really funny that Cody has literally said out of his mouth, there is a double standard in polygamy. Not in the way that you think that he would have said it, in the sense that double standard in polygamy is that the man can have as many wives as he wants, but if a woman has as many husbands as she wants, he described it as grossing him out at the idea of one of his wives having another husband. He can go and have all the wives he wants though. He wasn't talking about that double standard though. What he was talking about was the woman can divorce the man in polygamy, but the man can't divorce the woman. This to me makes it obvious that there are wives he wants to divorce that he doesn't feel like he can because of polygamy. This is clearly not a legal marriage, nor is it a spiritual marriage. I don't even know what it is, but it's not a marriage. They've literally said that they're just friends and she's alone all the time. So why? It's awkward. Like in the newest seasons when she shows up, it's like she's even expressed like, why is she really there? I have the same question.
We are celebrating our non-anniversary because we're not a couple, but we're in a family. And so like, what are we and what are we celebrating? It's just a funny situation. That's all.
True. Is it funny or is it just odd?
It's not funny, haha.
Now we get to the downfall of Janelle and Cody, because believe it or not, there's problems there too, guys. Just before we even knew of the Brown family and before they had their show, there were some troubles in the marriage. During the years when Janelle and Mary were trying to navigate their sister-wife relationship, the problems became just way too much for Janelle, and she decided that she was gonna move out. Janelle bought herself a car, a house, and she moved out of there, and Cody and Mary ended up moving to Utah without Janelle. They lived separately from Janelle for a year. They were still married because they believe when you get spiritually married within polygamy that if you don't get spiritually divorced that you're still married. Like, it's definitely not functioning, but nonetheless, Cody and Mary lived separate from Janelle. Janelle eventually quit her job and moved back in with them, so they rekindled things and decided to work some stuff out. There are many clips within the recent seasons of Sister Wives where Janelle expresses her unhappiness in the marriage with Cody. She expressed that with all of her children grown, that there was no necessity to stay with Cody. She also expressed with the way that their relationship is right now that it would be easy to just walk away from it. Hearing her say those things is not surprising due to the fact how toxic Cody is, how controlling he is, how much he gaslights and manipulates. During the pandemic, it was a difficult situation in their family dynamic because there were some wives and some kids that were social distancing while others were not. So Cody was stuck with this dilemma of trying to figure out how to see all of his wives and children with some of them breaking the family rules. I can understand the difficulties in that because the pandemic and how am I gonna see this person or that person, that was really difficult for a lot of us, and I do sympathize with that. But the way that he went about it, I don't feel like was right. There was a lot of very insensitive things that he said and that he did that were just, there was a way better way to work some of this stuff out, and you could just tell he didn't care. There's this situation where his daughter Aspen, which is Christine's daughter, has like a curved spine and she is in so much pain, and there are scenes of him being like, I didn't know she was in that much pain. Maybe if you were around, you know, maybe if you had a relationship with your children, maybe you would have known that she was in so much pain. You are severely lacking in having a relationship with your kids if you don't even know she's hurting. She needs to go have surgery, but it's during the pandemic, and he uses the pandemic as a reason to not go with her because it's not safe. He even suggests go to New Jersey by herself to have this surgery. So she ends up going with her mom, and luckily she has her there for support, but Cody doesn't go. And what makes this worse is that when Janelle had someone in her family pass away, He went to that funeral. Funerals are packed full of people. You went to that, but you couldn't go to your own daughter's surgery? There was a clip where he was saying that his older children just needed to basically learn that they were not a priority anymore because they were older. He also was telling Janelle that he wasn't going to come over to her house anymore if his older sons didn't move out. Because apparently the only solution to seeing one of your wives and your kids is for the kids to leave and you to not see them at all. Not maybe go spend some time with them and then social distance away from them and take a COVID test before you go and see your other kids and wife. Not that. They need to move out first and learn they're not a priority and literally not see them at all. Like, that was his solution. He expressed being very upset that Janelle was choosing to spend time with her older kids and to basically not kick them out over spending time with him, because her decision to not force them to leave was her making the decision to not see her husband, completely neglecting to acknowledge the fact that he had been leaving her alone with these kids since the beginning of their marriage, because that's what you do in polygamy, because you can't split yourself into multiple pieces and be at more than one place at one time. So he's leaving all of his wives alone with these kids for years and years and years. They're gonna grow a closer bond with those children than they are with you because they take care of them and are with them all the time. So of course, any of your wives, if they're a good mother, they're gonna choose their child over you. There's this like really heartbreaking scene between Cody and one of his sons where his son is, you know, trying to express to him that he wasn't even told by his dad what rules he needed to follow in order to see him. That Cody never even called him and talked to him about what he needed to do to be in his life. He didn't see his dad for almost a year because his dad didn't even pick up the phone and say, hey, here's what I need you and your brother and your siblings to do in order for me to come around and see you. His son is like crying and he's, you know, expressing he doesn't want to make his dad look bad, but he's hurt being the only one in their relationship that is trying to have one. Child should never feel that way. I don't care if you're 30, 40, 50 years old. You should never feel like you're the only one going to your parent to have a relationship. It should be mutual. You should feel like your parents are coming to you to have a relationship too. So I can see how Janelle would not want to be in this marriage. I could see how she'd be done with it too, because it would be heartbreaking to watch your husband just not give two shits about their kid. Now, this is the downfall of Christine and Cody, and a lot of the stuff that was said and done in this is so hard to watch. There were problems that had been coming to the surface that we even could see through the TV screen with Christine and Cody. It was clear that their marriage was not doing too well most of the time. I mean, obviously, there were very sweet scenes between the two of them at times, but just the way Cody was with her, he always acted annoyed and impatient with her. When Cody was courting Robin, like, there was very clear jealousy and struggles that Christine was dealing with. She had been the final wife for so long, and she was used to that. She had never been the third wife when there was a fourth wife. She was always the last wife. She never had to come into a relationship with someone where there was a wife brought in once she was already established into it. So she didn't experience what, you know, Janelle and Mary did with her coming in. So this was her first taste of that. And not only that, but she was pregnant at the time. While her husband's having like a honeymoon and a wedding, her husband that she was pregnant with was courting another woman and marrying another woman during her pregnancy. But I mean, this is what happens in polygamous families. They talk about the pros to being polygamist and getting sister wives and getting help and support and all of these amazing things about it, right? But there's a lot of bad to it. It's not good for your mental health. These clips surfaced of things that Cody said about Christine that was reasons why he wasn't attracted to her and didn't even want to be with her like that in the first place. Now, this clip I'm gonna show you guys right now, this could be really upsetting to some people if you've gone through something like this in a marriage or relationship with somebody. Not only did he say these things, but he knew it was being recorded and he was saying it around all of his other wives.
Cody wrote, Christine was the cutest girl in the world, although she was a little chubby.
I was pretty chubby.
But does size matter to you, Cody? I mean, were you grossed out by, you said she was chubby and she was eating the nacho cheese?
I will be honest, I was not attracted to Christine in any kind of physical sense. I mean, I look back in retrospect and I wonder, was that fair? But I can't even look there because we have children together, we have a life together, we have a relationship, and we found our sweet spot.
So you were not physically attracted to Christine?
That's an understatement.
You were grossed out by her?
I won't say that, but the nachos grossed me out enough to make me go, okay, I'm waiting to marry
How
her.
does it feel to hear her?
It's horrible.
You called her overweight and said she was unattractive and gross to you because she was eating. But then you say it in front of all your other wives, knowing it's being recorded. Imagine the stuff that he says behind closed doors if he thought he could say that. You can tell that she's heard some really awful things, because if I heard that said up to me from someone that I loved and I had been with, I would have a huge reaction to it, because I'm not spoken to like that on a regular basis where I'm used to it. And it just looks like she's used to being talked to like that. Now, in the more recent times, Christine came out with like a video diary and expressed that Cody was basically using their intimate relationship against her, trying to manipulate her to do essentially what he wanted her to do in the marriage before they could ever have an intimate relationship again.
I'm not interested in having an intimate marriage anymore. I don't like your behavior. We'll see if you can be a good sister wife and all this. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want us to have an intimate marriage? And he goes, no. And I'm like, that's not enough for me. I can't not have an intimate marriage. And he goes, people do it all the time. I know couples that don't have intimate marriages. What, so he gets to have an intimate marriage with other wives but not with me? And I'm, gonna have nothing for the rest of my life? I've known, of course I've known, it's not that I'm dumb. And he said a while ago that he wasn't attracted to me or anything. So I just thought that maybe it would get better.
This is emotional abuse, first of all, to think that you can do this with somebody. Now, he did claim that he never said that and that she twisted and manipulated the situation and that that wasn't something that came out of his mouth, but I'll let y'all be the judge on that one. He said that he didn't really think that she was gonna leave. If you say something like that to somebody and talk to them in the manner that you do with her and you think they're not gonna leave, that just tells me that you have other wives that you have manipulated like this too that didn't leave you, that made you think you could continue to do it again with Christine and her stay as well. That's all that tells me. To withhold something from somebody that you're getting or have the opportunity to get from 3 other wives, like she just has to sit there and boo-hoo herself to sleep at night because you're like, oh, well, you're not gonna have this then, but I get to have it with whatever I want. You better be a better wife and sister wife. What the hell? So I'm convinced this is not the first time he's told one of his wives this. He's clearly told it to Mary. They haven't been intimate for over a decade.
There are other wives that Mary, for instance,
I know, I don't know
that's
how
been
she
very
does it.
clear
I know.
that she has not been intimate with Cody for the last more than 10 years.
I know, I don't know how she does it.
And when Janelle was asked about their intimate relationship, she said something implying that it was fine, but when Cody was asked about it, you could tell that he wasn't intimate with her either. But him and Robin seem to be doing just fine. It seems like his only relationship that is stable is with Robin. And all of the wives seem to reference or acknowledge that Robin and Cody do seem to have a full functioning marriage. We don't really get to see inside polygamy very much. We don't really get to see how a lot of polygamists run their families. This is one of the only ones that's aired on TV like this. It kind of just shows how broken it is, and it is misogynistic, and it is in favor of the man. And men who are in polygamist marriages get really big heads and think they can say and do whatever they want to their wives. And maybe Cody is not the worst, but he does have some issues with controlling, with gaslighting, and being very insensitive. And he doesn't really think before he speaks. I feel like if you want to have multiple wives, you should probably have some respect for them. I don't think polygamy and respect seem to go hand in hand. I just hope everybody in this situation can get to a place where they're happy. Because at the end of the day, they're real people. And so I hope that they can find happiness. I'm sure there are so many things none of us know that go on behind the scenes, as there are in every everybody's lives. But with just what we've seen, there's some work that needs to be done on Cody's part. Now, I have a second channel if you guys are curious. I have been posting a lot about my pregnancy over there. I actually had Braxton Hicks in the middle of this video, and it was like the first time I ever had them, and it was very painful. I'm gonna have that channel linked down below. Make sure you guys go over there if you would like to. It's called More Kyeluh. You can search it up. I also have members content. When you become a member, you get extra content from me, and it's a way to support me in creating content. You also get a badge next to your name showing that you are a member, and I greatly appreciate you guys when you join and become a member. I get super excited when I see somebody's name pop up. I'm like, yes, I love you, thank you. But if you don't want to become a member, at least join my second channel. That would be absolutely fantastic. If you guys like this video and you want more content from me, give it a thumbs up. And if you have a topic you would like me to cover, leave it down below. It can be anything, on a celebrity, on a show, reality TV, whatever you want me to talk about, let me know what that is down below, and I will definitely do that for you guys. But I'll be seeing you guys in my next video.